Welcome back. Today I'm going to be bringing you my linebacker ranking for the 2026 draft, and I'm going to start this off in shameless fashion because, like everyone else, I get things wrong all the time. But I think I have a solid argument as to why you should at least consider my opinion when it comes to linebackers. Carson Schwessinger won Defensive Rookie of the Year last season despite being a 60-1 outsider, and okay, I didn't predict that specifically, but this is what I had to say about him before the draft. But easily my number one linebacker in this class is Carson Schwessinger out of UCLA. I honestly don't know that there's been a prospect at any position in this draft class who I was more excited to speak about than this guy. It amazes me that I'm going against the grain here by having him at number one, and who am I to say that I'll be right? But from my perspective, it is fascinating because here's a guy who blatantly mirrors all the traits of the best linebackers in the league, and it's not enough. So like I say, I get some things right, I get some things wrong, but hopefully that one gives me the chance for you to hear me out on what I have to say on this year's group. If you do enjoy the content, please consider liking and subscribing. It would be very much appreciated. Now let's jump into it. At number 8, I've got Josiah Trotter out of Missouri, and I've got a day 2 evaluation on him. Trotter is a one-dimensional run defender. He is high-waisted and lacks the ability to change direction efficiently. He also underwhelms when it comes to arm length and burst, and his awareness in coverage is poor. With this in mind, I don't think there's much of a role for him in a 4-3 system. He can't be relied upon to hold down the middle of the field, but throw him out too wide and he'll get exposed in one-on-one matchups with little help around him. I see him in a 3-4, tucked inside where all he has to do for coverage is drop back and hold his position. Plus, as an inside linebacker for a 3-4 defense, he can be let loose to showcase his run defense. Despite physical limitations, Trotter is a springy presence with violent hands and who gets off blocks incredibly well. He also keeps his eyes on the ball carrier and maintains strong gap discipline to plug holes and stuff the run. So this isn't super high upside and he's a little bit scheme specific, but what Trotter does well translates to the NFL and should give him a role to play. At number 7, I've got Anthony Hill Jr. out of Texas, and I have a day 2 evaluation on him. Anthony Hill is an aggressive downhill linebacker, his effectiveness being the definition of hit and miss, either getting into the backfield and making a play or leaving a gaping hole for the running back to exploit. He's got some good traits like a thick frame with good length and plenty of burst. Hill disengages with blockers effectively and is very consistent when it comes to wrapping up his tackles. On the other hand, his hips are tight and his pursuit angles are inconsistent, as if sometimes paying no attention to the play development whatsoever. Additionally, the hip tightness shows up in coverage as he seems to flash understanding of where he's supposed to be and generally stays disciplined, but gets his feet stuck and allows consistent cushion on his closest receiver that he is unable to close in time. With a year or two under his belt with NFL coaching and experience, Hill displays the traits of a solid starting linebacker in a blitz-heavy scheme. But like I say, it'll take some time and won't appeal to the more conservative defense come draft day. At 6, I've got Jacob Rodriguez out of Texas Tech, and already we're moving into my second round evaluations. Jacob Rodriguez is a stubby coverage linebacker with excellent athleticism to combat underwhelming length. His jittery nature and thick base allows him to beat blockers despite his 31-inch arms. He is excellent at defending runs to the outside as he can use his sideline-to-sideline range, and I think teams that are looking for a coverage linebacker will be excited at the sight of Rodriguez's film as he displays strong position discipline in zone paired with a natural fluidity and acceleration to keep the quarterback nervous when throwing his way. What I don't see Rodriguez ever being is a guy you stick in the middle of a 4-3 defense and ask him to be the heart and soul. He often appears lost in the weeds when the ball is run up the middle due to his lack of ability to track the ball carrier and pursue at optimal angles, coupled with an awkward upright tackling technique that has led to a consistently disappointing missed tackle rate throughout his 4-season college career. At 23, Rodriguez probably doesn't have as much room to grow as a few linebackers on this list, but he already offers an enticing set of skills for the right defense. Number 5 is the controversial one. I've got Arbel Reese out of Ohio State, and I have a second round evaluation on him. I'm not sure I've ever felt such a disparity between how impressed I am by a prospect's talent and how low I am on his NFL projection. As we all know, Arbel Reese is super talented. Long arms that pack a real punch considering his skinnier frame, and obviously its excellent burst and acceleration. But what is he? Precision flexibility is useful, but when you're drafting a player as high as Reece is being projected, you need to have a clear idea of where his high-end value will be. Most commonly, I've heard edge, and I'll make this really simple. I don't think he has the bend and the flexibility to play edge at a high level, or even to the level of a reliable starter if he played as a pure edge defender. I know people say it's projection, but I don't think it has to be. Although it's a small sample size, there are plenty of instances where Reece gets a step on the offensive tackle off the edge, and he either turns back the other way or just doesn't turn the corner at a sharp enough angle to pierce the pocket. Almost all of his pressures and sacks occurred running in a straight line as a blitzing linebacker, which has much more to do with the play calling than genuine pass rushing ability. The more interesting projection to me is as an off-ball linebacker. Now, he is inexperienced at the position, and it shows. He looks lost when he's playing this role. No idea where the ball is, almost always in the wrong place, both versus the run and versus the pass. Just completely lost. But you could bring him in as a will linebacker in a 4-3, try to give him man coverage assignments on a running back or a tight end because he looks pretty fluid as a coverage linebacker, and then when he's not playing coverage, you just have him attacking, trying to get into the backfield before the play develops, and maybe with experience he starts to learn the required instincts to play a more pivotal role. But right now, I think he projects best as a raw, unpolished off-ball linebacker prospect, and quite honestly, I think the general hype around him is a bit lazy and lacks a clear thought process of where he's actually going to provide the value. At number 4, I've got Kyle Louis out of Pittsburgh, and it's a second round evaluation. Kyle Louis is undersized, 6 foot 220 pounds with 31-inch arms, making him a prime candidate for the weak side linebacker role in a 4-3 defense, and he may even stray more towards being a nickel. Regardless, this is an excellent football player. As expected at his size, he's a tremendous athlete for the position, explosive and very fluid. But more than that, he just reads the game extremely well. My only critical note on his coverage is I wish he trusted his eyes a bit more and closed the space between him and the receiver sooner, but his awareness in zone is fantastic. Of course, his stature limits his impact on the run, and he often fails to wrap up his tackles as well. However, his elusiveness helps him overcome his difficulty engaging with blocks, and he reads the run incredibly well. So again, there are physical limitations, but I think his instincts will allow him to have an impact as an NFL starter. Moving into my first round evaluations, I've got Jake Goldday out of Cincinnati. Jake Goldday is a complex prospect. He entered college as a 0-star recruit and a 190-pound edge defender for Central Arkansas. Of course, a 190-pound edge defender is practically unheard of, so he began putting some weight on and adapting to an outside linebacker position. Then after 3 years, he transferred to Cincinnati and completed his conversion to what is generally considered an off-ball linebacker, although he's effectively been playing a big slot for Cincinnati in these last couple of years and has done a fantastic job doing it, leaving a real mess to sort through in terms of his NFL projection. He's scarcely played the role of a traditional off-ball linebacker, but whenever he does, he showcases enormous upside and surprising competence. Although showing lapses in zonal coverage awareness every now and then, he is generally very on it. He also has some concerning glimpses of awful technique when it comes to tackling, but he seems to read the game well, and having reached around 240 pounds in mass, his remaining athletic ability is phenomenal. Goldday has elite length with outstanding speed and fluidity, making him capable of providing a range of services for his defense, from nickel safety to blitzing off the edge. So it's uncapped potential, but with a recent shoulder injury adding to an already bulky list of injuries in his 5-season career, this only adds to the risk of a slight projection if you want to turn him into a more traditional off-ball linebacker. I will say though, this feels like someone you're supposed to say is a huge project, and so he just gets thrown into that box and you can't touch him anywhere near the first round. But I like to do a test with prospects like this, where I ask myself the question, if he was wearing an Ohio State jersey and doing all the same things, what would you think? I mean, Arvell Reese has shown almost no competency to play any significant NFL role, and I'm not trying to pick on him, but I think it highlights the point that the concerns for Jake Goldday are actually not nearly as pressing, and I would argue the upside is similar. At number 2, I've got CJ Allen out of Georgia. CJ Allen is a stocky, explosive defender who thrives when it comes to crashing downhill and stuffing the run. He does a great job reading the progression of the play and hits that hole with a vengeance. The balance he'll need to find to take his game to another level in the NFL is one where he maintains the aggressiveness while understanding when it's time to hold back and give himself a bit more margin for error in terms of which gap he should be attacking. His physical tools also give him upside in coverage, as he can stick his foot in the ground and pounce on receivers effectively. But as is often the case for a young prospect like Allen, he lacks awareness in zone and leaves gaping holes for the quarterback to attack. Allen had surgery to remove part of his meniscus towards the end of the season, and his medical may draw the fine line between him being a first or a second rounder. But he shows the upside of a top 10 linebacker in the league with a bit more experience. At number 1, without any real doubt for me, is Sonny Styles out of Ohio State. For every one of these pros and cons graphics, I tried to give at least one negative, but when it came to Sonny Styles, I genuinely couldn't think of one. As far as off-ball linebacker prospects go, he is practically flawless. At 6'5", his 243 pounds is spread across a fairly lean frame for his position, and he appears to have good length, which when combined with the power he packs in his hands, allows him to get off blocks with incredible consistency. But his best trait is his ability to read the run. Like a magnet to the ball carrier, Styles is always in the right place, seemingly 2 steps ahead of everyone else. Speaking of which, something that I thought displayed his pro readiness even further was the awareness of the bigger picture. And what I mean is that pretty much the only time I ever saw him seemingly misread a run play is when he's seen that the gap is already covered by one of his teammates and there's a more concerning opening elsewhere should the running back shift gears. Styles ties this all together with impressive speed to cover sideline to sideline and superb consistency when it comes to making tackles. He is going to give an NFL team an immediate boost to their run defense, and the cherry on top is that he actually started his college career playing nickel. And admittedly, I would think they moved him back to his high school position as an off-ball linebacker because he was too stiff as a safety, but he is no slouch in coverage. He's got the instincts and discipline required, as well as the smoothness of someone who can hold down the middle of his defense and be far from a liability. He really is the full package, and I now officially understand the hype. Overall, this is a phenomenal linebacker class. But that's all from me. I believe I'll be bringing you cornerbacks next, so keep an eye out for that. If you did enjoy the content, please consider liking and subscribing. It would be very much appreciated, and I'll see you next time.